Welcome to Rhinos and Aliens. All I know, though, you could be thinking in your head, oh, this fucking noob. Third
Fucking
cut.
amateur.
Third cut. Third take.
This is the most professional podcast I've ever been on, if that makes you feel better.
Knowing your background, that doesn't, but I
Right.
take the compliment. Welcome, Rhinos and Aliens, to yet another episode of Diving Deep into Entertainment. This is episode 56, and after having such a great episode last time, my man
Mark Prime. That's me.
is back.
Good to be here.
And as the title suggests, we are discussing Vivarium, we're discussing Louder Than Bombs, and we're discussing... What's the last film?
Oh, Night Moves.
Yes. I didn't forget. I was just testing, Mark, just so you guys know.
I watched a movie called Night Moves, so I hope we're going to talk about it.
What do all three of these films have in common?
Well, I'll tell you. They all star Sir Jesse Eisenberg. He's not really a sir. I don't know why I said that. Jesse Eisenberg, phenomenal actor.
Underrated actor.
Very underrated.
And to go off of last episode's theme of an actor doing a variety of roles, even though all three of these films are dramatic, each character he portrays is vastly different compared to each other.
Yes, yeah, I would say that.
Yeah.
But he still kind of has the same, air about him.
I think that's just him.
He has much more. His personality, I feel like, comes through a little more than, or maybe not personality is the wrong, like mannerisms, maybe.
Yeah, his atmosphere.
Jesse Eisenberg is always Jesse, not always Jesse Eisenberg, but.
No, but you could definitely tell the difference in character. That's
right. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so we're going to start off with Vivarium.
All right.
And this is a science fiction dramatic film that was released during...
Vivarium.
Vivarium. Thank you.
Sorry.
No, it's good. Hey, I'm all about keeping each other to a certain standard. It was released in 2020, I believe, sometime in April, so right around when the pandemic started. And as you noted...
which is kind of...
coincidental.
Yeah. What does kismet mean? Is that a word that you can say that? It was like it was meant to be. I don't know what kismet means.
I don't either, so I'm not going to lie to you.
I'm going to look it up. But it's just funny that a movie about, like, that kind of centered around being trapped in, an
area that you can't escape.
In a confined space.
Happened during a global pandemic. And as Mark is looking up that word, this film was distributed by Saban Films, and it was produced by Fracas Productions and Fantastic Films. It has a 72% on Rotten Tomato and a 64% on Metacritic. So it's basically fresh, and whenever you get above a 60 on Metacritic, that's saying something. So critics overall thought it was a good, if not great film.
Fate or destiny. So kismet works in that context. Sorry for the distraction, folks.
Absolutely it does. If you're going to be a subject of aliens.
Yes. You never know. Stranger things have happened in 2020.
Okay, I'm going to start off with a quote. Vivarium as a kind of modern inversion of the unseelie changeling myth. The fairies appearing as sinister real estate agents trapping their human victims inside endlessly fracturing neighborhoods instead of the hollowed out hillocks of legend. In both, the final message remains the same. There still remain some liminal spaces in this world where humans simply aren't meant to set foot.
That is very interesting. In terms of how, myth has changed over the years, we're always explaining things within the context of the world we have or the knowledge we have, right? So
in the moment.
Back in the day, people who went off into the woods and had some kind of strange experience, they were kidnapped by fairies, right? And today it's you were abducted by aliens, but we're trying to describe the same phenomenon. So
the same narrative.
Yeah.
Just
right.
a different quote unquote villain.
Just exactly. And it's just really a description of experience. I like that.
Yeah. I read that from an article, and I just had to emphasize that. The second thing, do you remember how the film began? The very first, well,
The very first image,
What was
right?
it?
The birds that were, and that was a
specific-
certain species that they pretty much, that was the film right there, like
Exactly.
a metaphor for what was going to happen. Though there's somehow parasites, or it's a species of bird that's like a parasite or something, and it tricks other species into caring for its young, right?
you want me to get specific for
Yeah,
you?
please, because yeah,
The species Mark is talking about is the cuckoo.
cuckoo.
Many species of cuckoo are brood parasites, meaning the cuckoo parents don't actually care for its children, the cuckoo babies. Instead, they serve.
Surreptitiously?
Yeah,
I don't know what that means.
but you can pronounce it.
Right.
They, what Mark said, lay their eggs inside the nest of another bird, and the baby, once it hatches, quickly seizes control of the family unit. The unwitting parents are driven to exhaustion, feeding their adoptive child's enormous appetite, and often perish.
Bit on the nose.
So I just read 2 quotes about this film, and I haven't given my opinion whatsoever, because these 2 quotes perfectly represent the film itself.
Right. Yeah, I would say so. Plot, anyway.
Plot, yeah, of course. But it made me think, holy crap. I understand birds, they don't have the largest brains.
Small brains.
Yeah,
Little
so
bird brains.
it somewhat makes sense that they see something that looks similar to itself. It's like, oh, that must be my kid. Whatever, I'm going to take care of it. And then in reality, it's self-destruction.
Right. Well, I think even, like, I mean, mammals kind of have an ingrained, like, not to speak of birds, but you're saying, like, they do it because they're stupid and, you know, they can't tell the difference. But I think there's a nurturing element in mammals that, you know, makes them drawn to caring, you know, to caring for young, that it can still be excused, I think, if we're translating that to humans, as in the case of this movie.
My only, as we're going to get into this.
Throughout the movie, like, there are multiple times where I'm like, why don't they just kill that kid? But the more you think about it, like, you know, would you actually be able to, even if you know
Yes.
it's some kind of...
If the last episode didn't prove anything of this dynamic duo, I am the evil one.
Right. I just think that as human beings, there's something that feels very unnatural about, you know, something that looks and feels that close to a human child, to actually saying, like, oh, fuck this, I'm going to kill this thing, is logical. But we're not. It's logical and rational, but we're not rational beings, right? We're made up of more than that.
Your argument would have been completely valid until this baby ages years in the span of months.
Right.
And the moment I see that, no matter how similar
the
you
fuck?
look, you're not human.
Well, that voice, though. I will say one like, this wasn't... I wasn't a huge fan of this movie. I'm not like...
Both of us weren't.
Right. But one thing I will say about the sound editing, at least, the voice is like human yet inhuman, child yet not. Like, that voice was amazingly done and very unsettling.
That was the word.
Unsettling. Yeah, if you could sum it up in one word, it was unsettling.
I was creeped out the entire time, bro.
Yeah.
The entire time.
As was I.
The place that Jesse Eisenberg and something Poots, that's the female actress,
Okay.
they were in this suburban area called Yonder. And Yonder is comprised of seemingly endless rows of wholly identical homes and roads that always lead back to the same place. So just so you know, if you really think the pandemic is bad, just imagine you trying to leave your house, your street, and no matter how far you go, no matter how many turns, it always ends up in the same spot, the same place. And make it even worse, you're coming back home to that same freaking
So
child.
that same, like trapped. As science fiction as this movie was, part of me, as the movie progressed, was like, okay, to take, like, okay, they're using a science fiction frame to tell this. It's a high concept film, but in a way, isn't this kind of like a very cold comment on just the perfect suburban life and just being trapped in raising this tiny thing that you're trying to teach to be a human. And it goes through kind of went through all the steps too. The parents, they meet, and they have a great relationship, and then they decide to start a family and all that. And then at a certain point, the mother gives in to all the child's needs, and the father feels left out. They have less sex, and they care about each other a little less, and life has a little less flavor. And the father, at some point picks up his midlife crisis project to try to feel like he's going somewhere, but he's kind of just digging his own grave. And all this just so you could churn out another fucking kid to work a day job. It was part of it felt very is this just a really bleak view on what life has to offer?
If you guys are watching this and you're wondering why the fuck I kept pointing at Mark every other statement, because everything he just said is exactly what the director said.
Really?
Yes.
I did not even, I swear to God, I didn't research for this.
Yes.
That's just what it made me feel. Okay, well, his mission was accomplished then, because that's exactly, how I started to feel about it.
Yeah, the director wanted to use the sci-fi genre to put the whole concept of the suburban life in a metaphor, and he wanted to use a
That makes sense. It's a common thing to be used, that science fiction is used for. It felt like a long Twilight Zone episode.
It felt like a Twilight Zone episode that went 30 minutes too long.
Right. It went way too more than they could have done this in a short film for sure. Yeah, it wasn't easy to watch the whole thing, but
I'm glad you agreed, because as we both agreed before they actually got to the house, I was loving it. The first 15, 20 minutes, I think, are incredible. But this is a perfect example of a film for me. As the film went along, it got worse and worse and worse. I have no problem getting over plot points that don't necessarily make sense. But when you have massive...
characters doing things that don't make sense. Who would do that? And they're just doing it because it serves the plot, right? We kind of spoke a little bit about this off air, but...
Who walks into a real estate agency and sees that type of house and was like, oh, yes, I want to live in this what type of
There's
green?
people who live in neighborhoods like that, though. It happens. That's what a suburban, perfect view of a home, looks like. It's for dramatic effect. It's to the nth degree, but that's kind of suburban life, isn't it?
That's
all the pretty little houses in a row, no personality. It's just...
That's true. How do you get past the creepy real estate agent then?
Aren't they all? I don't know. I've never dealt with I've never dealt with a real estate agent.
Okay, I'm getting very optimistic. I look past the ugly house. I look past the creepy real estate.
Ugly ass house.
Seriously, think besides puke green, you can't get an uglier green than that. Okay, besides that, what couple, even if they somehow look past that, they are actually driving to the suburb and they see that every single house is the same.
Right.
Who is not doing a U-turn?
Well, Jesse Eisenberg's character was smarter. I feel like he kind of got pulled into it. Because he didn't wanna. He saw the guy was creepy. He's like, "Are we doing this?"
But who wins out?
He was all for it.
Women. Why do
That's probably part of the metaphor.
Well, this is one of the plot points I wanted to mention. The reason why the kid survived wasn't because of Jesse. If it was up to him, he would have killed the kid. And
yes,
we
but
don't.
It's the mother's nurturing innate nature. It's part of what I went back to before too. The mother has much more of a traditionally, of a drive to be the nurturer and the caretaker, just by what do you call?
I would say their DNA
instinct. Yeah, exactly right. So taking on the traditional roles, yeah. And the father is the one who's just, when he's had enough of the shit, he throws the proverbial cereal bowl against the wall
and then he puts all his effort and energy into work, which is
Right.
the metaphor was him digging.
Right.
He would rather die.
Right. And he was digging his own grave.
Yeah. I will say this film was a beautiful allegory from start to finish.
And that's the other thing. Like I say, like I didn't really enjoy it, but I'm not a big to each their own. It was a fine film. I'm not usually that big on allegory though. Because the thing about allegory is like once you make the 1-to-1 comparison, you know, that's it. It was great for being what it was. Personally, that's not my thing.
The way I put it, I respected the film.
Right.
100%. I just like I said to you off screen, the moment they did not do the U-turn when they saw all those houses.
Like I call bullshit.
I'm calling bullshit.
I mean, so how deep do you suppose in this universe, how deep do you suppose they had to drive to be like in the bubble, right?
In the Vivarium.
Yeah, right.
The moment they went past
The sign?
Yes.
Right. So once you're past that sign,
Dunzo.
if that creepy ass sign did not tip you off, we can't help you.
By the way, great pointing that out because that sign.
Well, it's kind of looked like a, I don't know, a 50s development.
But
neighborhood
how it read when I was reading it,
What did it say? What did the sign say exactly?
I can't remember.
I can't remember either.
I just know it was even
everything.
cheesier.
There were so many signs. Like, I mean, the literal sign, but but there were so many red flags, before they got to the door. Before they got to the door, that any rational person would have not gone that far. But if they hadn't, there wouldn't be a movie. So they have to, and that's why the characters are subservient to the plot. It's just part and parcel for this type of storytelling, which is another reason it's not.
But to be
something
fair,
I greatly respect.
Going back to the whole suburban metaphor allegory, the whole concept of the suburbs, people are so willing to quote unquote live in the suburbs.
Exactly. Aren't we all ignoring the signs? Going into the trap. Don't do it.
Don't do it.
Right. No, that makes sense.
If we're being consistent, I just wanted to point that out.
No, that does. So that's an excuse for their behavior.
And another thing I do like about this film, my personal take, I feel like the director was trying to say, yes, you should always say your wife is correct. But if you go an entire marriage with that concept, it will eventually lead.
Right. Because you're just sacrificing yourself, right?
Yes.
And then there's no magic anymore. They didn't even like each other by that. Well, they kind of reclaimed a little, like,
but
remember when, but it's, too little too late.
Yeah.
We spent all this time, ignoring each other just because it's all about this little creature now.
Depending on how cynical you want to get, the director could have also been using, if you get a kid when you don't plan for it, the kid might be a blessing, but most times could turn into a burden, which will actually divide the marriage.
And I'm sure it's both, like I said, it's a very bleak, cold look at the family, whatever, because it's one element of it. Suburban family, because it's one element of it. Having a child, on the other hand, is also like enriching and beautiful for other reasons, but that's not what this movie was about.
And to go along with what the movie was saying, when you force something, it never ends well. And just like they were forcing the house, technically in this case they were forcing a kid. Whenever you force something,
it doesn't work.
Yeah,
the magic is gone. The strawberries don't taste like strawberries; they taste like nothing. Can you imagine, by the way, how long? Okay, so what? Roughly a year or two, I guess. They were there. How fast was the kid growing? They were there for a long time. Can you imagine eating shit every day that has no taste? Wasn't this movie like just depression itself? Like nothing, everything's the same all the time. The clouds are shaped like clouds. The food has no taste. There's just no
entertainment,
no color to life.
Yeah.
Can you imagine staying sane for even a week under those circumstances?
Bro, I would have killed that kid. Hear me out. initially I would have killed the kid out of anger, right? But my wife stops me. Okay.
Yeah, and that was kind of,
Yeah.
that was the scene, right?
But after that, a couple weeks passed, I would have killed the kid for fun because there's literally nothing to do.
I don't know if it would have been. Oh yeah, well yeah, I guess that would have been colorful. That would have been exciting.
Francis, myself,
Right.
I would have done it for fun because there's nothing else to do.
I hope you never get depressed.
Well, I hope I'm never in a
Going on a murder spree just to put that little bit of color back in life.
I hope I'm never in
Color
a
red.
alien. I just want to see blood, guys.
Right?
I need that, but honestly, I think a lot of serial killers start off like that, though.
Because they don't feel anything.
Yeah,
You reckon they get,
yeah. Obviously, I don't know about how many docs, how many films based
Right.
off actual serial killers. The first kill is because it brought them excitement, and they're just like,
just like any addiction or like a shopaholic or something.
and
like,
every kill after that
Right.
is just trying to recapture the first time,
Right.
And they never can.
So if you have that urge, you should just be like Dexter and direct it, direct it somewhere.
Yo, I always say
Useful.
this: if you're going to be a serial killer, kill serial killers.
Right.
By the way, do you know where serial killer came from?
I do not. Is it related to like a cereal, something that repeats?
Yes. The person, the American who invented the term serial killer got it from the British, who said that before they were known as serial killers, they said these killings are like a cereal.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. Because I know story in terms of story is like a serialized drama, right?
Exactly.
In that term, it's not referring to cereal that you get in a box.
Not the C, the S word. Okay, I do want to say this.
But how cool would it be for someone to go around killing all of the characters, like on cereal boxes, like Captain Crunch and Choco? Who's the Choco vampire?
Count
Chocula.
Yeah.
Aptly named.
So this is a TV show then.
I suppose it would be a cartoon. I'm
Okay.
sure there's more. The rabbit, the fucking rabbit.
So Dexter
Who keeps
cartoon
stealing the tricks. Yeah.
for kids.
Yeah, where the main character kills all of those characters. I would watch it.
And I thought I was the cynic.
I'm sure that could be a metaphor for something too. I'll work it out.
I think you need to do some soul searching.
Killing of your childhood.
Okay, I just want to say this, as we already mentioned this, but to get specific. The film opens with a shot of a newly hatched cuckoo pushing other baby birds out of the nest. This is a phenomenon in nature known as
Brood parasitism?
yes.
What does brood mean?
I did not look that up. But it's a specific type of parasite.
Okay. Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
That's smart. Smart people talk.
And by the way, I'm about to answer your question.
Okay.
In which some birds will lay their eggs in a stranger's nest in order to trick the other bird into raising their young.
So this is how they do it all
This is
all
how
the time. So they don't have their own nests.
no, this is how the cuckoo species.
So what do they do in between all of that? Like, okay, say one is born and it's raised by something else.
So once it's
I assume it leaves the nest at some point. What is it doing between the time that it leaves the nest and it lays an egg in somebody else's nest?
the film, you remember when the kid was fully raised?
Right.
He was waiting for his next victim. So from the
They
moment,
just wait. Their whole life is just about that.
like a tick.
Well, I guess that's what makes it a parasite. That's such an empty life. Why bother?
Yeah.
It's so unfulfilling.
In Vivarium's opening, the cuckoo eventually becomes so large that when its unwittingly adoptive parent returns to feed it, the cuckoo looks like it's about to consume the adult bird's head. You remember that?
Yes, that was very disturbing.
Yes. So in many cases, the cuckoo, because this is a much larger bird than the actual birds it's growing up with, ends up consuming the parents themselves.
I wonder, was the you know the scream, not the screams that the kid did, but when he was mimicking
screeches?
when he was mimicking the like
The
that
TV?
guttural thing, when he was mimicking
Oh, the toad.
whatever. I wonder if is that like what the bird is that in any way like
No, that
how the bird, makes noises or screams?
no, that was based off of the actual alien, and the alien is based off of a toad.
Is it?
Yeah.
Is that verified?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Well, that according to the director.
Right.
Not saying it is the aliens are a toad, but the noise and because you remember that at one moment in time you actually did
Right.
see the alien.
Can I say one thing that I did respect is that they didn't go too much into
The alien
explanations and what the alien, because I don't feel like that mattered. That was kind of beside the point. And I don't like as much as I don't like science fiction in general. What I really don't like is when it becomes just about the
plot.
just about the aliens, and it's like, let's explain, why these, I don't know.
What makes War of the Worlds so great?
It's because it's about the reaction, right?
And the humans.
Yeah, exactly. The best science fiction at its best doesn't get lost in.
It puts the humans first.
And yeah, exactly.
And that's the best part about this film. It puts the humans first.
Right. So to its credit, yeah, it did that right. I didn't need any more explanation than we got.
Oh.
And I like that I can wonder about, like, why does it make that weird fucking noise?
If the kid wasn't dead already, the moment I saw that, he's dead.
Yeah, that would have been the time to kill the kid. When he's impersonating whatever, and she's just staring at it in horror. Yeah, that was pretty scary.
To be fair, it followed her character in that moment, but
Right, it did. She's not the one that. If Jesse Eisenberg would have seen that impersonation, that thing would have been dead.
But at that point in the story, he was
didn't
already
give a fuck. He was outside
sleeping in
digging.
the hole.
Right. He lost it.
Which is another metaphor
Right. Exactly.
for you taking your job as your life.
Right.
Because that's his life became digging that hole.
Digging that hole.
Which, by the way, I already knew that. Just to be clear, you're telling me you could walk wherever you wanted. You ended up in the same house, but you were somehow going to dig your way out of this situation?
I don't know what he was expecting. I don't know that he was actually trying to get anywhere. If he actually thought he was going to get anywhere, is more like he said it right away, right? He's like, just let me do this. This is something I can do. I don't think he had any hope, any hope of anything coming of it. I think it just felt like, what else? Like, at least this feels like I'm doing something.
Going back to this suburban life, you lose all meaning in
Right,
everything but
right.
your job. Your job
Exactly.
literally becomes your life.
Right. And maybe this is stupid and it's going nowhere, but it's something that I can focus on.
It was a reason for him to actually wake up in the morning.
Right. Because what else is he going to do?
But to be fair, if I had a beautiful woman like he did, I'm getting my nuts out, man.
But she stopped, like, paying attention to him, right? In favor of the kid.
That's when you get the knife and you slip.
The movie would have been much shorter and the metaphor would have fallen apart.
And bro, think about it. You put a spin on it. You turn this brutal, depressing, savage moment into a Mayan, exciting ritual. And the blood goes from whatever you want it to be to now it's part of the sex. Now you're adding something.
That would have been an entirely new metaphor. I think you should make that movie.
I'm just trying to.
That would be an interesting spin.
Thank you. I was trying to make a spin because normally
you can make one on modern suburban lifestyle. Why can't we make a metaphor for
sacrifice?
You're right.
That aids into sex. And by the way, I honestly believe a lot of sacrifice did lead to some bomb sex in the native cultures.
Probably. I mean, a lot of that death and life. Most fertility cults, sex is bound up in that, right? Because death and life are kind of the same thing. Yeah. So the sex cults, pretty much the same thing, right? When all is said and done.
And to be fair, at this point, they knew they weren't leaving. Why not make the most out of it?
Right. But they definitely didn't realize that soon enough.
Yeah.
Which
is another metaphor.
We would, yeah. If you'd realize that, then, I think they had to go on the journey to realize that. And then by the time they did, that didn't matter.
Is there anything else you want to say? Because the more I think about it, it's making me depressed about suburban life. So
it is quite depressing. I don't think I have any further things to say.
I got a lot of questions.
Okay. All right. Ask away.
All right. When would you have known you were in this nightmare?
Known on what level? Like known that something fishy is going on, or like fully understand what's happening to you?
Well, the first question is more so, when would you have thought you were dreaming? Like, would you have ever thought this was a dream? For me, I would have said the moment we kept driving and they kept popping up at number 9, that's when I would have said, okay, honey, pinch me, because we must be dreaming somehow at the same time.
Probably what would have done it more for me was when they tried walking. Like they walked in a straight line. There's no other excuse for that. Like when they were driving, you could, like, everybody's had that experience, right? Where it feels like you're driving through a labyrinth and you can't figure out where the fuck you are.
Especially the way the roads were.
Right, exactly. So it's possible you could still rationalize that away and say, I'm doing something wrong. But at the point at which they jump fences and anything they need to do to walk in a straight line all day to come back to the number 9 house, that's when you know. That's when I'd know.
The creepy real estate agent wouldn't, obviously. The location of the houses you've never heard of. This is supposedly the biggest suburb popping up, and you've never heard of it.
Yeah, where is this? How do you get to the terraria? Can someone drive into it on accident, or do you have to be led there? Like, if you're driving the same way...
We were never told.
Is it not there if something's not pulling you in?
I don't know.
Because it must, at least the entrance must occupy, like, a physical space.
Well, you remember they took a main road, and because the real estate agent said it's somewhere between these two locations. He wasn't specific. He just said between, whatever that means.
Do you think it's always the last couple's car?
Yes.
That the new agent is using?
Yes.
Okay.
Because you remember they blew up
the cycle.
They blew up the car, and then the next day it was brand new.
Oh yeah, that's true. You can't destroy things. You can't burn down the house.
Nope. Pop back up.
What do you suppose would happen if you killed yourself?
They would have let you die and found somebody new.
Yeah. Yeah,
now,
I guess that was the point.
My question is...
Oh, yeah, because they were... The past couples, one of them had killed themselves in the tub, right?
Yeah. And then other couples were... You remember, like, Jesse found 2 bodies when he was digging?
Mm, right. Yeah.
My thing is, what would have happened if you killed the kid? Would they have killed you or just brought you another baby? And broke your will?
I'm thinking they would have, that seems more like them. I think they would have kept bringing it until you just submitted. And I'm like, all right, fuck it.
You know what I would have done? I'm going on a killing spree, baby. And instead of
you get bored eventually with it.
Well, he didn't get bored digging that hole.
No. I think he was beyond boredom and, yeah.
Well, our job...
You just kill everyone until you're spent.
Yep.
Like, I refuse this thing. None of the... It would... So, in a way, you'd be sacrificing yourself but ending the cycle. Because at some point...
The
you're
guy would
going
die.
to expire and nothing will have gotten old enough to take the last one's place.
Yeah, because you remember when we first saw the
beautiful
real estate...
Self-sacrifice.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I like that. That would be a way out. I think you'd have to already have an awareness of the big picture to know enough to achieve that.
For me, the moment I figured it was some type of alien thing 1/3 through the film. Mm-hmm. So when they had the straight line and they came back and then the baby was there,
right?
That's when I knew this is not a human situation.
Right. Well, I knew it was a human situation, but I guess my question until I don't remember how long into the film that I was like, okay, yeah, it's aliens, but mine was like, okay, are we in a fantasy thing but that goes back to the generational explanations of like, what's the difference in the end?
I knew it wasn't fantasy just because I knew the genre of the film.
Right. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
But even so, like, you're either kidnapped by fairies or abducted by aliens, and that's describing the same experience, right? It's just
bad fairies.
Just the forms that you put over that kind of thing, that you describe something in a way that it makes sense to you. But is there a difference in the end? As I feel like one of the questions, given the quote you were saying.
And another thing too, you remember how the the baby when it came. It says, "Raise it, and you will be let go."
Right. You'll be freed. Death is freedom.
I've seen too many films to know what that means.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think it's time. And when he comes back at the end, he's like, I think it's time we let him leave. Or whatever. Like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
He's dying. Which that is a freedom from bondage of life.
The real estate agent disappears the moment that you go in the house. So that's just leading.
Kind of slipped out.
Yes. When they were driving, they drove for half a day and they still couldn't find their way out. They kept arriving to the same house no matter what direction, same number 9. We were talking about not only were they walking in a straight line, they were walking towards the supposed sun. And they still came to their house.
Do you suppose there are other house numbers? Or the other houses are real? Or do you think they're all number 9?
I think they're all number 9. I think it's whatever the system is.
Right. That's the central point. That's the only thing that's everything else is just atmosphere. But there's really only that one.
Yeah, it's some type of those weird science films to where it's technically this massive world, yet in reality the world is
just one central thing. That's the axis mundi in mythological terms. The center,
what is that?
Center of the universe. Like the center of the universe, the center axis. It's just the center axis that everything in the world revolves around. Like in Norse mythology, the world tree is the axis mundi, or Mount Olympus is the axis mundi, and
okay,
it's kind of just the central point and purpose of the entire universe.
Except everybody,
while they're in the terrarium, it's number 9,
and everybody's experiencing the same thing.
Right.
Yeah,
the smoke and ash and stuff is still on them, which is funny because something actually was consumed then, right?
Yeah.
So there's still evidence that something was burned down, but something is there again. So it's not like it was undone.
Yeah, but to be fair, I'm assuming that this entire area is built from the same thing that the food is built from.
Right.
It's this
an endless
supply.
It just grew back.
Yeah.
The house grew back.
And to be fair, if these aliens could create a situation where no matter where you went, you ended up in the center of this axis, then obviously anything else is possible.
Yes. There are no rules. Or there are, but we don't understand them.
Okay, we already discussed this. When would you have gone from, okay, I'm obviously not dreaming, I'm not having a nightmare, to this is an alien situation? At what point in the film did you go from, okay, this is some weird dream film, to this is something supernatural?
The kid speaking. Yeah.
So when he was
when he started like mimicking their voices and stuff in this weird kind of way.
When
the kid got old enough to have whatever
adolescence.
that personality was, like that's when,
it was like a creepy AI when you really think about it.
Right.
If an AI was some organism trying to learn and adapt.
Right. And he's like mimicking you, but he's, I don't know. That was creepy. Creepy as fuck. I'm never having kids.
The novel written in that weird ass language. Okay, to be fair,
that was a tip off.
the moment I saw that, that's when I 100% knew this is something alien.
Right.
I had that feeling this is something alien, but the moment I saw that language, nope, this is aliens. This isn't a weird dream. This isn't some fantasy.
Right.
This is full-blown extraterrestrials.
I think the dawning moment for the character in the film, was when she asked him to mimic whoever he went to see.
By the way, that's what created the frog situation.
Yeah.
When she asked, "Can you mimic?" and he started making the noise, that's when he did his throat expanded like a frog.
Who said it was designed? That was the
director.
intention of the design. Okay.
Yeah.
Why do you suppose that all of our depictions of alien life are usually reptilian or something like that? Is that because that's like the only way we can like picture like a sentience that's not human?
But
it always seems to be up that alley.
I disagree. I think it's more so humanoid. Why do we assume it's like us?
Well, the thing is, like, why use the frog? as a model for creating something that's unhuman like is what I mean.
I think in this case they use the frog more so because copyrights. Aliens have been done so much. I can't remember the last alien type.
Name an alien that isn't in some way like trying to that the basis of how it behaves or makes noises or whatever isn't like either reptilian or insect or something like that.
But reptilian and insect are different.
Right.
A lot of Star Trek aliens. A lot of Star Wars aliens.
Right. They all are.
No, they're
Like
not.
that.
They're not.
All right, name one.
The Star Wars alien, all the Jedis, they're humanoids.
Right. Well, the Star Wars aliens are like they're all based off the designs from in that the cantina scene in A New Hope, right? And that was just what masks at the time. What masks can we find lying around?
Star Trek.
And then those suddenly became all the aliens in the
Star Trek
universe. Yeah, I guess you're right.
You're thinking of like
You're trying
Alien
to
and stuff.
you're trying to where you're trying to convey aliens as something otherworldly and dangerous and remote from us.
Well,
It's always taken from. It feels like usually the route that they go is it's some sort of like less than human creature that we can reference in our own world.
are middle-aged men tirelessly working themselves to death and incapable of love, just like Tom, Jesse Eisenberg's character?
I think that's a common. I think it's a common enough thing. I think it's a common enough thing to consider like a regular archetype. Like, the guy who's just killing himself for no reason, doesn't really care.
So you would say on average the American man is...
Yeah.
Okay, a follow-up.
Toiling for I know not what.
In that case, he's literally living to work.
Yes.
On the other hand, are women like Gemma forced to live a lonely life that is confined to raising an ungrateful child, as you hinted at before?
Yeah, I think, like I said, it's a common enough thing for them to make craft this whole metaphor on and people can recognize it.
I don't give a fuck about the director's perspective.
It's
yours. Do you believe that is...
It's a common... I mean, but we're talking middle class... We're talking middle class America, like suburban, it's a common thing.
That's depressing.
I don't think, yeah, fuck yeah.
What's the point of dreaming for something if it's gonna make you so miserable?
Well, that's why I said. So this is it's a cold, distant look at what that kind of life is like, right? It's taking all of it's a cynical look at that life. I feel like that's an element of what people can feel like they're trapped in, but the life that you're living for happens in the little moments in between all that, of which this movie was void of because it's purposely just taking that feeling in isolation. Like, there are moments in life that make things worth living, like seeing a fucking bunny in the clouds, which is taken away from this movie, right?
Well, you can
there's stuff in between the feeling of just like you're working for no reason. There's stuff that happens in between, but you have to be noticing that kind of stuff. It's a perspective.
You can make the case this is also a film about when everything is special, nothing is. So when everything is exactly
There's
the
your
same.
perfect, that's why everything being perfect is
Nothing is perfect.
Not what you want. People think it's what they want, but it's not what you want.
Just like
we're not built for that. If things are perfect, we're gonna fuck it up on purpose because that's what gives color to life.
Or when you're
it's
always
the biting of the apple, right?
When you're always happy, then you're never happy.
That's what depression is, and even depression. People think that depression is sadness. It's not. It's the removal of anything like that, any highs and lows. So like, yeah, if you're all happy all the time, then there's no real reference point for what happiness is. And it ceases to be happiness.
Well, that's why I always say, if you ever see a couple in a relationship and they're always happy, then either it's a lie.
Yeah, somebody doesn't care enough.
Or
if they're not fighting once in a while, somebody doesn't care enough.
Exactly. Exactly.
So, fight.
Are humans' existence utterly futile? This is the thought.
Again, it's a perspective thing, right?
Okay.
No, continue.
No, it
finishing
just
your point.
came to my mind at the end of the film when I was really thinking about what, like, because when you think about it, the film overall metaphors for a lot of stuff, but at the end of the day, what's the overall message? No matter what we do,
Right. That is the message of the movie. Yes.
it's pointless.
Right. But that's because this was viewing life through that frame on purpose. I feel like life is futile if that's if all you have is that cynical lens, then yes. I think you get out of life what you put into it.
True, but would we humans, quote unquote, be as positive and upbeat as we are if we weren't number one on the food chain?
I think it's debatable that we're number one on the food. Well, as a large unit, yeah, we are.
That's what I'm saying.
I think that if we were lower on the food chain, like if life was that's as much to say that like if life was harder, right? I think we would appreciate it more.
But what if
I think we would be happier if we were lower on the food chain, is what I'm saying.
Well, what if this is like the Matrix and our purpose was solely, but we knew about it? Like, let's say we were, every human was trapped in this alien's vivarium.
Mm-hmm. Well, in a way you are, right? That's seeing through the
looking glass?
Yeah, right. But so it all depends on what your reaction is after knowing the truth, I suppose. So that can be a freeing thing, or it can be a
Suffocating.
yeah, right. And that's all to do with your reaction to knowing that or seeing the pattern of life, I guess.
Would you make the case that this is a film that could be viewed as red pill versus blue pill? Because at the end of the film, which, by the way, from a cinematic perspective, the best aspect of this film was the ending,
Right?
where you saw the different dimensions and stuff. Some of those people never discovered that they were.
So I would say, yeah, you do make a point. It's going in the opposite direction, though. They were awake and they went to sleep, which is what often happens as you get older and get into the hustle and bustle of life, I guess. They took the blue pill and they went into a sleeping like matrix of this is just what life is.
I think they took the red pill. They just weren't able to.
You mean at the end when they kind of redeemed themselves a little bit before dying? Yes. Yeah. No, I agree. I agree with that.
Okay, yeah.
Because they decided to, yeah, and that was death was being freed, right?
Yes.
From the. I agree.
Yeah.
But the descent into the Vivarium, I feel, is very much like taking the blue pill.
But then every single one of those couples took the blue pill.
Right. I mean, don't we all? For a little while.
Well, technically speaking, the film starts with them taking the blue pill.
Yeah.
They didn't see any of the signs.
Right. So if that fucking creepy ass dude is offering you the red or the blue pill,
I would first assume that he switched the pill colors on purpose.
yeah, he would do that, wouldn't he? Motherfucker.
Yo, to be fair, he would probably give you the same
They would
pill.
both be. I was just thinking that there wouldn't be any difference, of course.
No, you're taking the blue pill.
I'm giving you the illusion of choice.
Which, by the way, did you hear that fan theory? I'm not going to get to it.
Right. another episode.
Yeah. But we're going to have to
I'm
discuss
down for Matrix discussions down the road, yeah.
the fan theory that Neo and everybody never took any of the pills. That the entire time they're a matrix within the matrix.
I have not heard that.
Yeah, the illusion that they
Sounds
were
like
freed.
a mouth fuck. Or mind fuck. Sounds like a mind fuck.
Well, that's the theory about what Resurrections is going to be
You
about.
have to delete that out. That was a mind fuck.
No, have you not heard any of this?
No.
Yeah, well, supposedly
It sounds...
the new Matrix, the reason why it's being called Resurrection, because supposedly...
Oh, yeah, they're making another Matrix. I personally only really like the first and sort of the second Matrix. I don't think they should do another one.
You're one of those
But
people.
that's a different... You're excited for the new one?
I'm not. I don't know what to be, because
Right.
I'm hit or miss with reboots / long revivals.
Right.
But I
That's all we do
feel
anymore.
the second and third films don't get enough credit.
Ugh. Another discussion.
Okay. So, long story short, Vivarium is basically a metaphor for suburban life, human relationships, parenthood, red pill versus blue pill, humans.
It is cynical as fuck.
Yes.
And very depressing.
Yes. Now we're going to get into an even more depressing film, baby, with Louder Than Bombs. You thought I was going somewhere else. Nah. We start off depressing and we just go down from here. I'm sorry.
I would like to disagree with that, actually. What's the next film we're gonna continue?
Louder Than Bombs.
All right. I feel like this movie, having watched it in its entirety, at least, I thought it left me on a very hopeful note.
Really?
Things about death in general are commonly actually about life. I don't know. I felt like this was a very tasteful view on the ups and downs of life and relationship, and what it means when someone dies.
So, like always, Mark is going to take the positive, optimistic take.
Thank you for saying that. A lot of people think I'm not optimistic.
Well, when you're in a room with Francis, baby.
It's hard.
And as I
would become a serial killer just to add that little bit of color in life.
And as I just foreshadowed, yes, I'm going to take the negative, pessimistic approach. Before we get into that, Louder Than Bombs was released in 2015. It was released by The Orchard, which is now called 1091 Pictures. And it is a production by Animal Kingdom and Motlez Productions. It has a 73% on Rotten Tomato and a 70% on Metacritic. So on average, the score was even higher than Vivarium, and I agree. I think this is an incredible film. By the way,
this is like an artsy-fartsy kind of film.
But
it is so good that a lot of people would roll their eyes at, but I loved it. That's my shit.
The only positive thing I'm going to say about this film, right? Like a positive take. I feel besides certain moments in how the film ends, it was an authentic and realistic take on life itself. You have highs, you have lows, and you're just trying to...
Definitely agreed. What was unreal? I'm curious at that comment. What was unrealistic about the ending to you?
It was happier
than it should have been. It was too positive of an outlook.
Well, you take the first 90% of the film, right? Mm-hmm. I feel on average that 90% of a film ends on a more not depressing or down note, but a more even keel note.
Right.
And it just felt, going back to What If,
right?
It felt like it was too good of an ending for the film we got before.
I didn't feel like it was necessarily. Are you referring to his dream?
Yes.
When they're in the car.
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
So that having like a good feeling about going to meet, his nephew, I guess it would be, like new life coming into the world. That feeling of optimism toward that is unrealistic.
For me, the way the film was going, it felt like the happiest part of the film.
So you thought that the change in the young kid's attitude is unrealistic?
It was,
because he was like a little shit for the whole movie. And then he's like, "What do you mean I'm hard to talk to?" Like, you're a fucking asshole.
No,
I would never have teenagers. So Vivarium made me never want to have a little child, and this movie made me never want to have a teenager.
So I just completely...
Yeah, I felt so bad for that father. He tried so hard, and that kid was a little shit.
Okay.
I mean, I understand when you view it through his
lens,
like, and he's an angsty kid, and everybody goes through that stage. But that father trying to talk to him was excruciating to watch. I felt very bad for him.
Let me put it like this: the first 90% of the film had a certain atmosphere,
right,
and the ending completely switched up the atmosphere. So it wasn't necessarily the character; it was the atmosphere. Like you know what it reminded me of? Happily Ever After. The hero went through this massive, struggling journey, and now there's
the difference between... Finish that first.
I was just going to say, and now the film is ending on a bright spot. It just, for me, my lens, it felt...
I wouldn't characterize that bright spot as a happily ever after. So to me, a happily ever after takes the unrealistic thing about a happily ever after is it takes away any of the natural consequences of the bad things that have happened. This was an ending that was more, it was seeing that there's still brightness and hope in life, but that doesn't erase it was still melancholy enough that it doesn't erase any of the bad consequences of what has happened. And that, to me, is a much more realistic, I don't like all of a sudden things are great endings, because that's not the way life works. But things are maybe even, you have a new appreciation, and things are maybe even more beautiful because of what we've lost.
Yeah, but the entire car ride itself.
Right. The fact that they were like, let's take a road trip and meet the grandkid.
Yes.
Because we all get along now. It ended hopeful, but it was in his mind that it was hopeful. It doesn't necessarily mean that things are good.
I disagree. The weather, the sun, the location of the car. If we're being technical as a director, you know exactly what you're doing.
Right.
It just not only the kid was happy, the entire car was happy. The environment.
I don't think Jesse Eisenberg was happy. He's nervous to go back to his wife. He doesn't know what's going to happen with that relationship. He didn't even really want to go back. He's like, I'm too drunk to drive back because I'm being angsty about my whole relationship with my wife or how that's even going to go. The father's being supportive by driving him back there, but I think he's in an uncertain place.
I think the way they set up his character was a person who acted like he always confronted the problem when he never did, and it was ending on like he has changed his tune. Which
I don't think he's changed his tune. I think he's recognizing how he's more like the mother than
he realized.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the mother's affair had a direct impact on him sleeping with that ex-girlfriend. Him and his mother's attitude towards life is they're both distant, right? Like, it's not that they don't love their families, but they don't necessarily feel that connected to anything in the end. I think there's always distance between them and the people who they care most about. And I think that was kind of his realization and acceptance of that, especially after seeing the picture where he could kind of dawned on him that his mom was, sleeping with someone else.
Scumbag.
Well, no, I wouldn't say that. I don't think he was angry when he discovered that. I don't think that upset him. I think it made sense to him.
We know about the mom's relationship. I don't know about his relationship. We assume that he's in the wrong because the film painted his wife as the quote-unquote ideal wife, but I don't know what's going on. So I can't say he's a scumbag or not.
Right.
The mom...
Well, I'm not saying either of them are scumbags.
The mom's a scumbag.
You don't like the mom?
I respect her for being a savage.
Savage?
Because
wow,
she was true to herself. She's a savage.
Right.
She cared more about her job than her personal life.
I don't know if I would characterize it that way.
How would you?
I think it'd be hard to do that kind of work and have normal life feel real to you.
You come down to that point, your job, it's altering your reality.
Right.
Your soulmate sees this, knows this, and gives you an ultimatum, which the husband did.
Which he did, yeah. He wanted her to stop doing it.
You go out again, you're proving you love your job more than your family. What does she do? She goes
out again, yeah. Well, she ultimately kills herself. It's just like, she doesn't care about her family enough to stick around anyway, apparently.
But don't forget, they hinted that she killed herself because her work wasn't being recognized, which is even more selfish. So
she's misunderstood. I mean, artistic people are kind of selfish. That's a common trait.
But going back to what you asked me, do you actually think she...
I don't condemn her for that.
I'm not saying I condemn her, but right. I'm. What did we just say?
It might be a mixture. Okay, so part of this might be an ingrained, like that's just the kind of person she is. But I think the line of work she does has to account for some of it, at least.
Okay,
It was
so
just done to her. Like people who go out, like she was basically a wartime photographer, right? She goes and sees some really real shit on a regular basis, and then goes home to like our fake American lifestyle where we pretend suffering doesn't exist. And it's hard. It's probably hard for her to even feel like her family is real, you know?
I still can't side with that because her husband was always there. At least the way the film pictures him, he was always.
He did give up his career.
I'm pissed off for him.
Right.
Like she is for me.
I don't think he's angry. One of the things, he was my favorite character for a lot of reasons, but he had
Great
such
father.
Yeah. Yeah, I felt
By the way,
man.
this is the same actor as the guy from In Treatment on HBO.
I don't know what that is, but I'm probably going to try to watch it now because I like the guy so. You know, he reminded me a little bit of Ian McShane. Do you know who that is?
Yes, I do.
He reminded me a lot of him. I don't know why. Maybe it's his voice or like his face. And I do love Ian McShane. He's awesome in everything that he's in. He could have and maybe arguably should have gotten angry, but he was just a very calm, understanding person, you know?
Which is more reason why I could not side with the mother.
Right. I'm not necessarily siding with anybody, and I don't think it's the kind of movie where they want you to side with anybody. I think they're giving everybody's experience of life and how their relationships with each other affect them. But I don't think you were necessarily supposed to side with the mother or side with the father. Both going through their own thing, and sometimes it doesn't jive with each other very much.
Just because the film, I agree with you, the film wasn't.
I don't think it was encouraging you to demonize anyone.
But I still
It was
was
just
able.
saying that our paths are sundered in this way, and that's just the way life is.
Yeah, but I would say the film was also showing how people many times they use moments in your life to make excuses for acting a certain type of way when you know that's the wrong way to act.
So you feel like through force of will, she could have like changed,
Well, just
for the betterment of being with her family.
just not her, Jesse Eisenberg's character, and the younger preteen.
The thing that got me the most was when he said to his dad, "Am I really that hard to talk to?"
That hurt me as
I wanted to smack him. I shouldn't have kids ever.
Yeah, that is a smacking moment. Like you little douche.
There's literally like one of the first scenes in the movie. The dad said, "I'm just trying to talk to you," and he said, "Get the fuck out." And then later in the movie, he's like, "Am I really that? Why didn't you tell me? Am I really that hard to talk to?" Like, what the fucking kid? I mean, like I said, he's a teenager, and teenagers are fucking stupid. So I give him a pass. But
You could still make
that made me like, God bless that father for his patience.
Yo, I would love to have him as a father.
Yeah, no, me too. He's great. He seems like a very gentle dude.
But I also feel like he was stern, but
Yes, in the right kind of way. Like, yeah.
But he let his son get away with stuff because when your mother...
Right, because you understand, like, you have a license for a certain amount of,
And don't forget, he never told him how she died. No.
So let's go back. So they were debating whether they should tell him at all. What is your thoughts on that?
I would have told him the truth from the get-go.
Yeah, I agree. I did understand a little bit when I first realized that part of the premise of the movie was like the kid didn't know. My first reaction was that, like, why does he not know already? But then once I saw a little bit of his behavior, I was like, okay, maybe he's actually afraid that, like,
I think
maybe the kid is so unstable that he's actually afraid of what he's going to do if he knows.
I think the kid always had a hint because at one point,
right? I like are you talking about when he's remembering in the car?
And he's saying all the signs about how she was...
Yeah, like he was remembering a time when he was in the back seat and his father was falling asleep at the wheel, and she was plainly seeing it and just letting it happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what I was going to say is I feel he always...
knew, but didn't want to...
admit it.
Right.
Because at one point he told the father where he said, you acted like I never saw the signs.
Right.
So he knew, he just didn't want to believe it. And I feel
Which
if the
makes
father
sense.
would have said it from the get-go, it could have
Cleared up a lot of... Right. Because then you're authentic. Because part of... We only saw them after their relationship was bad, but maybe it wouldn't have been so bad if the kid thought like it was authentic from the beginning.
Maybe it would have grown from the get-go.
Right.
Because the father would have...
See, but okay, now comes with so the positive turn at the ending could be coming from the fact that they're authentically relating to each other now. So in that way, that positive turn was earned, right? It didn't come from nowhere.
I'm not
There
saying...
was a fundamental change in their relationship in that maybe they're not always going to get along, but they're being real with each other now. That was the journey of the movie.
It was too quick, though. When you go... Because she was dead for a couple years at that
Right.
point, right? When you go that many years
Right.
of a lie, and then in literally one day, everything's gravy.
The scene altogether was too quick because so what didn't make sense to me, just the mechanics of like, okay, the kid was out all night, then he came home
With the
and
girl.
he had to go to sleep, right? And he's
Yes.
like, "You go to sleep, I'll go talk to your brother." He goes in the other room. Like, I assume he immediately went and talked to the brother. He's
Yes.
like, "I'm drunk, I can't drive home." He's like, "Okay, I'll drive you." And then the younger kid's in the back seat. Like, wasn't he going to sleep?
Yeah.
Did he then go back and say, "Never mind, you're coming with us. We're going for a ride"? Like, I don't understand just how they all got in the car.
You know what's crazy? I did not even think about that, but now thinking about it, he did tell the younger son.
Yeah, he's like, "Go to sleep. I'm going to go talk to your brother." And then he decided he was going to drive him home, and then they were all in the car.
Okay, I take back. I definitely dislike the ending now.
Right? Whoops. I didn't. Yeah.
You were
It didn't-
slowly bringing me... because I was respecting what you were saying,
Right.
but now it...
Well, okay. I feel like... So, on an emotional level, that ending is completely realistic to me, which is more important. It was just that tiny little plot thing that bothered me, which I don't even think is as... I don't... You know.
But
I
for
don't care.
me, when the film emphasizes time and place so much...
Right. It should be more consistent than that. Or at least give like a little... They could have like had a 5-second scene where he's like, "We're going to go to your brother's. Do you want to sleep in the car?" Like, they could have given some logical...
At least an embrace. Like
Right.
he's opening the door saying,
Right.
come
right.
on.
Yeah. They could have just... Come on now. That's probably the only flaw I can say about the movie. Other than that, I feel like it was completely like realistic to me.
Well, I should have emphasized the first time, it wasn't the emotional payoff that I disliked. It was the timing of the...
It happened too fast. It was
Yes.
too much of it. I get that, but I also feel like it was earned. Maybe you're right that the timing wasn't right, and we don't know that that's a fully developed sense of hope. It was just kind of a hazy dream he was having. Sometimes your unconscious does the work before you actually do. That wasn't his waking self that was saying he was feeling hopeful. Maybe he's not. And this was a movie all about what's going on internally.
True, but before this scene, whenever it was an internal thought, they emphasized the quality of the image.
Right.
To where you knew, okay, this isn't reality, this is him thinking, dreaming of it. When they showed that scene,
You don't think it was dreamlike enough?
it was clear as day. At least when they went from inside the car to outside, it was clear as day. Like, this is a hopeful scene. So that's why I disagree about dreamlike. Maybe in the car. But once again, going to the surroundings, everything about that scene was, we're ending on a good note.
And it just happened too fast. So it made sense, but it happened too fast.
Yes. If it was just a couple weeks, let alone a year. Because
So maybe if they just would have paced it differently, the ending. If they would have... So the ending needed to be longer, then, is what you're saying. So if this was a longer movie and there was more time in between those two scenes for development, would you have looked on it better?
Oh yeah, I would say the film would be...
So there's a missing... Maybe there is a missing scene between there. Maybe that's why the kid's in the car all of a sudden when he's supposed to be in his bedroom sleeping.
It could have been
maybe it was
deleted.
edited out.
Yeah.
Who knows? Editing can change the context of things as is explicitly stated in the movie itself.
How
I don't
would
really
you
wanna talk about
react
that.
to the discovery of your favorite parent dying in a car accident while you were in middle school?
God, that's really difficult to say.
Well, to make it easier, how would you have acted differently, or if would you have acted the same compared to the film?
I don't think you react to anything as well when you're young. At this point in my life, I've been acquainted with grief. I've dealt with my share of loss of people close to me, but that was when I was like a developed adult. I don't know that I would have, I don't think anybody is emotionally prepared for that kind of thing when they're a teenager. So, yeah, no, I think we would have definitely taken that kind of thing much more rough. But the crucial thing is what makes it most rough is that it's not just that the mother died, right? It's that she killed herself. Was that your second question?
I'm leading. God,
Sorry.
Before we get into that, so you just
It definitely would be harder toll if you're a kid. I don't know for me specifically how that would have played out, but yeah, definitely you're just developmentally, you don't have the stuff to deal with that yet.
you don't have the mindset,
Right.
the tools.
Yeah.
But if this happened in high school, you feel like you would have been able to handle it better.
No, in high school worse. As an adult better.
So what would make middle school easier than high school?
Oh, middle school and high school. God, I guess I don't see a lot of distinction between middle school and high school.
So let's say sixth
So
grade.
the main distinction I would say is being a very, very young child. Oddly enough, so being a teenager would be the worst time for something like that to happen. Oddly enough, I think being a very small child would probably be even better, easier, because
you can't recognize it.
you don't really,
Can't process
you can't even
it.
comprehend it.
Yeah.
And going forward, the most normal parts of your life will be after this happens. So there really won't be a stark contrast between this was life before and this is life after. It would just always have been life.
As crazy as this sounds, I think it would have been harder for me in high school than middle school.
Really?
So let's say sixth grade, 12 years old, middle school versus 10th, 11th grade, 16 years old. If I was 16, I would have, especially my mother, if she would have died in a car accident, I would have taken it worse in high school, because that's when I started to truly respect my mom. Just not
Right.
love her because she's my mother, but respect
But
why.
as a person. Yeah, that's when you're starting to know your parents as real people, which they aren't when you're little, right? You have a different quality to. It's an amazing experience, re-meeting your parents as an adult, because they are different people when
Yeah.
they're not raising you anymore.
Can I change my answer? If I was in middle
Right.
school and I lost a parent, especially my mom, I would have reacted worse short term, but long term, I would have gotten over it easier. But if I was in high school,
Younger, more resilient, yeah, long term. Yeah, you're right. Well, that just goes to teenagers they feel things much more,
well, because
deeply.
people don't
but
realize.
it's in the they're much more in the moment, right?
Yeah.
You're going to go on to develop after. Yeah, that makes sense to me. But a big enough crisis as a teenager,
Well,
could make you do permanent things.
Well, I was going to say this too. As I feel, even if it's only 4 years, I feel for me as a 12-year-old, I would have only been able to process the emotional aspect. But as a 16-year-old, I would have processed everything: the
Right.
emotional, the social,
Right. Just because you're more aware. Yeah, just the super young versus. Yeah, it's kind of the same distinction I was trying to make, but
just a
I
different
guess
age
a
gap.
different age gap. Yeah, but I guess you're kind of saying the same thing. The older you are. Okay, so I have this theory about death, or the deaths that, as long as things happen in the proper order, I feel like every death you're experiencing is a slightly closer to home loss, and it's all in the end directing you toward accepting your own death. So when you're a little kid, you get an animal or something, right? A cat or a dog, and at some point that's going to die. That's sad. Yeah, and it kind of teaches you about the life cycle, but it's not
Life expectancy.
right, yeah. It's kind of teaching you about this is the jam. Then you get a little older, like, and your grandparents die, and that's a little bit harder. And then you become an adult. Hopefully, it's later when you're an adult. Your parents die. That's a little closer to home. Then you get really old. Your siblings die, or your significant other, or someone super close to you. Like, it's all closer and closer to the center of you. And then at the end of all that, you die. I feel like it's all like, it all makes sense. And it's all preparing you for accepting, like, letting go yourself.
You know what I call that?
What?
Consciousness.
Yeah. Life's not perfect and things happen out of order. And
I was about to say another thing too. If any of that happens out of order, it completely fucks
yeah, absolutely.
that concept.
Yeah.
In a perfect world, that's how it would.
Yeah. If I were to lose a dog at 60, it would devastate me.
As bad as this sounds, I've cried harder for pet deaths than.
Yeah. Well, it depends. I mean, it's the quality of the relationship, I suppose. That can certainly be a thing. I'm not trying to say that it's less important automatically if a pet dies. Like, it's to each their own. But
Do you believe you could become numb to
magic.
death?
Numb to death? Like,
Yeah. Emotionless to
like,
death.
I believe that people die from, like, broken hearts. Like, you hear of, like, couples that are, like, so old and have been together forever that one dies and, the other, a few, like, weeks later will die or something because,
No, but
like, they're just broken.
do you believe you could become numb to the concept of death?
Yes. Yes, I believe you can. I think you kind of do. Maybe not numb. Numb is the wrong word, but
Not for me.
I feel like part of our, like, modern culture where fake stylized death is like everywhere. Like, I think that numbs us to death. I think we're numb to death in our culture because we don't really see dead people, right?
No,
we,
I'm not.
We kind of hide them away, but I think we're numb to death just because we see it so much in television and movies and stuff, but it's not real.
No, I'm not saying about that death. I'm saying death of loved ones.
Right. Like, you lose so many people, it doesn't mean anything anymore.
Yeah. Just like how soldiers who kill enough people in the army when they come back, life means.
Well, that's a defense mechanism, right? I think you can become numb to it, but I think that's just because you're some part of you is purposely shutting down because, you're protecting yourself from it. So I guess yes, but I don't think anyone's really ever numb to anything. I think that's a coping mechanism. Yeah.
That's a good point. I wasn't even thinking about the coping mechanism.
I think at a certain point you would have to. Think about people in super extreme, situations. Like,
But it's sad because the coping mechanism is protecting you, but at the same time, it's making you less.
Damaging you. Yeah, you're being less human. Like, I wouldn't want to ever be. That's depression again, right? Depression is not the same thing as sadness. That's what I said earlier. Like,
Yeah.
I hope that I would much rather feel it, right? Because, that's what life is. Life is scary, and life is horror, and life is suffering, but damn it, you're alive. And that's a great thing.
I'm glad you emphasized that because the same thing with OCD. People, when they hear OCD, they hear clean. When that's not OCD.
It's controlling.
It's something.
Yeah.
It's a repetitive motion that can't be explained.
Right.
There's no sense to it.
So you're ordering your world, like, is what you're actually doing. You're making things safe and predictable.
What, with OCD?
Yeah. I mean, part of it can be.
No, but I was just saying that depression, you're supposed to feel sad.
Yes.
You're supposed to feel the spectrum of emotions.
So, right. So you're saying depression is, like, shutting that part off.
Yes.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. Even though it's damaging, it's kind of saving you from really experiencing things. I think we're afraid to feel bad today in modern life. Like, nothing should ever be.
I disagree.
This uncomfortable, and that's so damaging.
I think uncomfortable is the better word, because
Right.
people on social media want pity points.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's a different thing entirely. I agree with you there. I
Yeah.
agree with you there. But that's a thing. Like, it's because they're not actually sad about everything. Like,
Oh yeah, it's not true. They're just saying it.
yeah. Like if you're trying to score pity points on social media, your life is not hard enough. you haven't suffered enough to really like understand.
Or you do a massive interview with a billionaire,
Right.
like Oprah. Yeah, you're
Yeah,
depressed.
exactly. Oh. Yeah, and I think a lot of the problems of today are people having to make up problems because we just don't remember how hard life can actually be, and that's why it's damaging. We
But
lose
like you
character
said,
for that.
technically speaking, you could make the case people were happier back then than they are now because they actually
and I
had
do make that case.
a
Yeah,
more fulfilling life.
because you're closer.
You're closer to
Life
nature.
was harder. Life was harder, and in that way, you're closer to the nature of things, right?
But you can make the case that back then, just 100 years ago, let alone beyond that,
Right.
not only were you closer to nature, you were closer to your inner circle,
Yep.
and you did have a wider spectrum of ups and downs, your overall
Exactly.
emotions, which makes life
Right.
reality.
Exactly. And your relationships did mean survival. Like you can't be a recluse in the old world and like still there's a reason that like being excommunicated from the society meant death because if you're not around people, you're not going to last long out there because the wilderness is difficult.
But not only that, you don't have the internet to where you could talk with people over line, even if you never see another person again.
Right, exactly.
There
So you
is
don't have another even
a
as fake
scapegoat.
of an outlet as that is. It fulfills it, in a superficial way, fulfills that need.
Exactly.
Yeah, I
Can
think
we-
we're all sorts of fucked up right now.
Can we go back to the
Yeah.
the film? Okay, so to go off of the accident
That was a
thing,
very long philosophical tangent. I like it.
I like it, bro. It wouldn't be Rhinos and Aliens without stuff like that. Okay, you already hinted at this. How would your reaction, your state of mind change if it went from your parent, for me, my mother dying in the accident to where she was the reason why she died because it was a suicidal death?
If I were a teenager, am I a teenager still on this?
Let's just
Because
say,
my reaction is different as if I'm a teenager.
well, let's say around the same age as the kid
Okay.
in this film.
If I'm a teenager who, like, you're very self-absorbed and you need your parents much more at this point,
Especially when you had a high
Right.
state for your respect for your mother.
like a teenager, a teenager would be angry, right? Because that's what other ultimate form of abandonment can there be than that?
That's the
she didn't
ultimate
care,
form.
She didn't care about me so much that she
She didn't just
she
leave.
could have been here with me, but she decided not to.
She should have
Like
been there
that,
for you.
yeah, I would be angry. If I were older, I'd be a little more understanding that life is more complex than that, and it's not about me and blah blah blah. But if you're a kid, yeah, that would be like, well, fuck her. She left me
You could make the case that he was taking out his rage for his mother on his
on
father.
his father. Yeah, that would make sense if he understood on some level.
And he
And
did.
especially his father being unwilling to be honest with him about it. He just
It was a double whammy.
sublimated all that anger and put it on the other parent.
So you
For sure.
you know what I know, but you don't know
But
that I
you don't
know.
want to talk about it. Yeah,
And now you're covering
Look,
it up.
we're not allowed to talk about it.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
And you wonder why I'm so difficult to talk to.
Yeah, that kid was a pretty good actor. I think he gave everyone in this movie, I felt like they gave a very honest performance.
Yes. Even Jesse for that character he was playing.
Yeah. Yeah, but yeah, the teenager as a teenager was very authentic.
By the way, he was a dickhead brother because at basically every point in the film, he was putting his brother down.
I don't think so. I think he was being the correct balance of like, think about it. At one point he lived in the house. He was his older brother. That's his job to like make fun of him.
Do you believe
But
he
he-
actually meant that you're a good writer? Because when Jesse
Yes, I do.
that I did not believe it for 1 second.
Really?
Because
Think he was just fucking with him?
the voice he said initially when he made that comment was the same voice he made when
He saw him dancing.
dancing and when he was talking to him about that girl went with the
So
letter.
do you think that was good advice? Do you think it made sense to try to protect him
Okay,
against doing that?
something can be good advice, but the way you deliver it ruins the advice.
See, I thought he delivered it very masterfully. He's basically told him first, like, you're above these kids. Like, you have more depth than them, and because of that, they will not understand you. Like,
But he never asked about the girl. He never picked his.
she was like, he saw her there. She was a stereotypical cheerleader. Like,
But that's
oh my God, your cat just scared the shit out of me. Sorry.
But that's exactly what I'm talking about. His character assumes everything and places judgments.
Maybe
and then
Maybe he did, but I thought it was sound advice. Still, I think he was trying to protect him, and I think that was a good older brother move. And I think he told him in a way that wasn't insulting.
Even after he said, "You have no chance with these people."
He didn't say that.
With the girl, what did he?
He said if you give her that if you give her that thing, like, she will not understand it, and they will rip you to shreds. I think that was a fair assumption. He knows his brother, and he also knows how fragile he is too. He doesn't want to see that, even if it's not a 100% chance that that's what's going to happen. I don't think he wants to take that chance because, maybe he knows his brother can't handle it.
Whenever he talked to his brother, it was like when he was talking to his wife.
Interesting. So you think he's not honest with anybody? Well, that goes the same of he was definitely his mother's son, and in that way too, he's not really. You're arguing he's not really authentic with anybody, or he's distanced, or he's lying, or he's not being completely.
As I said before, I think he's a type of person who likes to tell people what they want to hear. And even you're saying right now, why would the little brother want to hear what he just got told?
Right.
But once again, his little brother knew what really happened to his mother, and he didn't want to hear it.
Right. Yeah. I didn't agree with him saying, like, why do we have to tell him?
So for me, I'm not saying the advice itself was bad. For me, I didn't believe the words coming out of Jesse's character's mouth. That's why.
So if he wasn't being truthful, if you didn't believe the way he was interacting with his
it's not
brother,
even he wasn't being truthful. His
Right.
intentions weren't what you think it was.
So what was his motivation there? What was he trying to do, if not protect his brother? It was a no apologies, like, this is me, the good and the bad and the disgusting and the... It was meant to be pure expression of honesty, which is what artists do.
For the entire film, right? He's lying to his wife. Mm-hmm. He's lying to the woman he's cheating with. Mm-hmm. And when the brother isn't in the room, when it's him and his father,
Right.
he wants to lie to his little brother.
But so I feel like his motivations for lying are always because he thinks it's protecting them from something. He's telling the truth that he thinks that girl will make fun of him. I think that he thinks that. Maybe you can argue that he doesn't really think that his writing is good, but the motivation to protect his brothers is what's at the heart of that, whatever else is true or not true.
Yeah, but his motivation telling his brother that the writing is good is to boost up his
self-esteem, yeah.
Yeah.
But not so much that he's going to, like, give it to a random girl.
But that's where
any lying that he does is not an outright lie. It's a lie of omission. Like, I don't need to tell someone more than they need to know because in his mind, what purpose would that serve other than to hurt them needlessly?
So
I don't think that's a bad motivation.
So if your ex sees you with a wedding ring,
I'm not saying whether it's in the end good or not. I'm saying that in his mind, that's not like he's not being deceptive for his own sake. I think in his mind, he's always protecting people.
she thought his wife was dead.
Right. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, that's pretty bad. But
That's
he's
like
thinking,
swearing
like,
on
I'm
your
never
mother
gonna see him
to get pussy. I swear on my mother's grave,
But he's thinking he's never gonna see her again, right? It was just a one-off. Like,
I don't know how.
I'm not saying it was a good thing. That was super fucked up.
You keep pointing out how this dude is consistently lying and lying for his own gains, yet you're somehow defending him when
I
he's
didn't
with...
know he's not lying for his own gains. He's lying. Like I said, the lie of his most common trait is the lie of omission to protect people, or at least that's how he sees it. I'm not saying if that's effective or not. I'm saying that seems to be his motivation.
His truth doesn't mean it's the truth. So he could be thinking he's omitting everything
Right.
to protect somebody. That doesn't mean he's actually protecting somebody.
Right, but we're talking in terms of his intention, right? You're trying to say, is he a shitty... What makes him a shitty person or not is the intention. Who did you like in this movie?
The father.
The father, yeah, me too. He was definitely the most sympathetic character.
And to be fair, I always only had one parent. So if I would have lost another parent, especially a parent who I thought, and I saw signs of suicidal, I wouldn't want to push my last remaining parent away. And to do it for years. So that's why I don't like the kid. And for me, I've always been an open person to where I'm either telling you 100% of the truth or I'm not saying anything.
Right.
And if I'm not saying anything, then you already know what's going on.
You warned me that you had a bleak outlook on the movie.
Dynamics, though.
Right.
Dynamics.
Right. No, I certainly don't think he was a saint, but I don't think he was as self-motivated as you're making him out to be.
To be fair, I've seen the film 3 times. So
Right.
every time I saw the film...
You hated him more? Like,
Yeah.
you scum, I'm going to eat your brains.
Because you know when you see something or you're around somebody, the more...
You're like, you know what? Fuck that guy.
No. It's not even that. You notice more things about something or someone.
No, that's fair. Not
To
more
be fair,
subtleties.
the first time I saw him, I was legit neutral on the character. I was thinking what you were saying. By the third time, the most recent time I saw it, for me, just the tone of voice and how I was picking up his mannerisms.
Right.
Every time he was lying or he was doing a self-motivated act, for me, it translated throughout the entire film. So I just picked up on stuff and maybe I was being...
Well, it was a good enough movie that I'll probably do a rewatch at some point. So we'll see if my attitude changes towards him.
How would your opinion about your mom change about when it comes to her death, when it goes from she was killed to suicide, and now you discover that she was having an affair before the accident? So with the
again, so this is the third, spin on this.
yes,
I think again this would come to like the age.
well,
the
let's
age
say
of finding out.
before college.
Right. If the younger I am, the angrier I am, and the older I am, the more understanding I am that life is complicated.
Okay.
Right. So, I guess if I'm a kid, I'd be pissed off, but as I grew up, I'd probably be more understanding. I don't know how much I'd investigate too, though. If I found out, would I want to know more? Like, would I want to know who it was? Would I want to know what was going on between my parents at the time? I don't know.
That's a great point.
Because maybe my dad was like difficult to live with at the time. I don't know. But the immediate response wouldn't be thinking about the nuance. It would just be, anger. But that's natural. But I feel like as time went on, like, try to get more of the story and you'd slowly just understand that your parents are people just like everybody else.
Okay, now questions about the suicide. What age do you need to be to take your own life because you can no longer find passion in anything?
What age do you need to be?
Yeah. She took her life because she no longer found passion in
Right.
what she used to find passion in.
Right.
Her passion died.
Yeah. That
That's-
makes sense to me.
Because it was that one scene where she was in the airport and she saw her article and she
It's
had
like,
that
this
smile.
doesn't actually mean anything.
No, but originally she had the smile, and then when the dude quickly flipped past it, that's when the depression sank in. That's when
Right,
she
right.
realized her work no longer means anything. If her work...
I think the caption in the article that it went with disillusioned her too, like before that. Like they didn't get, because there was a whole scene earlier in the movie describing like what she felt when she took that picture, and that's not how it was used at all. And it's just like,
I actually didn't even think about that. That's a great point. So not her work isn't
Right.
even being used in the way she wants it to be.
It was used to basically like exploit them for pity, which is exactly what she said was not the intention.
Yeah.
Like when she talked about it.
And I believe she said that to the actual people themselves.
Yeah. Like, I don't want to be using you to like characterize you as victims and blah blah blah.
I want to tell your actual story.
Right, exactly. And I think I can't remember exactly what the caption said, but it said something about needing aid and blah blah blah.
It was
look
pity
at how
points.
horrible. Yeah, it was exactly being used exactly how she didn't want it used.
So it was a double whammy because her company used her.
I think it was a slow dawning. Like I don't know if she necessarily felt used. She just felt like misunderstood to the point where like, does the work I do has it ever really meant anything if people can't really understand?
But both her company and the audience aren't understanding what she's going for.
So that complete disconnect from the world, I feel like, what can lead to loneliness and wanting to not be here anymore. More than that, like just not feeling connected to anybody.
But what age do you think
not being understood
that could settle in? What do you think is the youngest age that could settle in, where you can know
that you're just not connected to anyone?
Yeah,
and you're completely misunderstood. I feel like adolescence is when that starts, and some of us don't grow up out of adolescence, and those people are called artists. But in all seriousness, yeah, I would say you're old enough for that kind of thinking once you hit puberty.
For me, I would say 25 is the youngest.
Really?
When somebody can. Now, I'm not saying.
So what does it mean when why do explain adolescent suicide to me? Why do they do it?
They're not killing themselves for what we're talking about. They're not killing themselves because their passion in life no longer means anything. They're killing themselves because what society around them is doing to them.
But is that not just like a more simplified version of the same feeling? Why does her passion in life not serve her anymore? Because that's her point of connection with the world, and that's not being understood by anyone. And she's realizing the fundamental feeling in both of those is loneliness. It's more complex and more sophisticated in her case because she's older.
Yeah,
but that's the same thing that a kid feels when he doesn't have any friends and he can't get a girl and
but that's not a passion.
Teenager kids himself. But no, I'm saying the fundamental thing that the passion brings you is a feeling of connection with the world around you. It's the connection that is lacking. It's the loneliness is the core emotion.
Yeah, but then that's all suicide then. All suicide is the same thing.
The ultimate disconnect from humanity, from the rest of the world, is to kill yourself. That's just basically a solidifying of the feeling that you have, which is loneliness.
But if you take away the internet, over 90% of these pre-adult suicides don't happen. If you take away, I forgot the stat. There's a stat where ever since the internet existed, teenage and pre-adult suicide has increased threefold.
Right.
That's not a coincidence. At any point in time, be it the Middle Ages, be it now, if you lose your passion, and your passion literally means nothing, that is the ultimate sense of depression.
I agree with you, but I guess what I'm trying to say is what's underneath. Why are people passionate about things? What does your passion do for you? What does it serve? I'm saying that the root of that is connection.
But then you could say the root of all killings is survival. But it's more than that. Every killing is different.
It's more complex than that, but it's still, to boil it down to its essentials. The task of like waking up end of life is to realize again how simple everything really is. I think we suffer so much because we overcomplicate, try to make things more profound than they actually are, and that's the root of a lot of suffering out there.
Okay, next film.
Did I throw a wrench in that question?
Yeah. Night Moves. It was released in 2014 by RT Features and is a production by Film Science and Tipping Point Productions. It has an 86 on Rotten Tomatoes and a 75 on Metacritic. So, by the way, I didn't do this on purpose. Every film increased on Rotten Tomatoes and Metacritic.
This
This is the
Night
highest,
Moves is the highest rated?
both on Rotten Tomatoes and Metacritic, meaning that
Wow, that's surprising to me.
the most critics approved of the
Of this
film
movie.
and gave it the highest average rating.
That's really surprising. I don't know. Maybe it's just because the last one was more my taste, but I'm surprised that this got a higher rating than Louder Than Bombs.
To be fair, this is the most realistic of all.
Oh yeah, yeah.
When I was watching it, it could have been a documentary.
Right.
If you were in there.
Right. Like I'm sure somewhere like this has happened.
It's based off of a
This is
true.
a million. Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Well, true events.
Right. Loosely based. Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, this probably happened 1,000 times. This is probably the movie that I have the least to say about. But I will say, what I will say is, the ending of the movie. My first reaction was confusion, I guess, and then right on the heels of that, it was to reevaluate what the entire movie was about. At first, it didn't feel like an ending to me.
It was open ended.
Right.
Literally.
Like so open-ended that I felt like, what was the resolution then? What did I watch this for? And I realized I wasn't like waiting for somebody to get caught or waiting for some big, like, consequences or something. What the movie was really about was the three characters that were involved and who was going to lose it. And, his accomplices, Jesse Eisenberg's accomplices, were like, well, can we really trust the girl was, can we really trust this guy? Like, he has a record and he seems like no good and blah, blah, blah. And the guy was like, well, can we really trust her to keep her cool? She's really new at this. And Jesse was the straight man, right? He was the one that was like the most stoic, whatever. But in the end, he was the one who really kind of couldn't handle it and lost it. And then I realized that's what the movie was about.
Technically speaking, she was the one who snitched.
She didn't, though. He thought she was going to, and he went nuts and fucking killed her.
Well, she started acting on character.
Right.
Which is the pattern of a snitch.
But he's the one who lost his cool in response to that.
I don't blame him for doing what he did because she was going to snitch.
Well,
she stopped
okay.
showing up to work.
We may differ about who lost it, but the very fact that we're talking about this is exactly what I meant. Like, this is what the movie was really about. It's about, who's keeping their cool and who's not, which
But
on my first round through, I was thinking about it in a different way, I guess.
no, that's fair. I'm not saying he kept his cool, but Dakota Fanning's character did not keep her cool because the whole point is after the situation happens, you go back to normal life.
How much do you think she was actually calling? What was curious to me was you never see the other guy, the third guy afterwards. You just get
because
him
that was
calling,
his character.
right? You just get him calling. So I guess what I'm asking is, how much do you think she was actually calling him and
there was rumors going around the town, and the two men did not snitch. So if rumors are going around the town, it's only coming from one.
I guess I wasn't aware that anything actually. I didn't think that anything actually got out.
Yeah, that's why he got kicked out from that home where he was farming. They kicked him out because of the rumors.
Yeah, because they were suspicious of him.
But he wasn't acting suspicious.
Were there actually?
They said
maybe I need to watch this again. I wasn't under the impression that anything actually got out.
That was the whole reason why he went to her and was getting scared because the rumor.
I thought he was worried she was going to.
No, bro. She stopped going to work.
Right.
She was acting different. People around town were wondering why she's acting different. They connected it with him.
Man,
he got kicked out.
If I enjoyed this movie, I'd watch it again. To I don't know, to understand that more fully. I guess I misunderstood the whole thing.
Okay, this is a good question for you. How far are we willing to go to make ourselves seem right?
Oh, God. Yeah, we could very far, very far. Someone with enough pride, you could go all the way out of your way to convince yourself that you're right. I mean, to convince other people that you're right is one thing, but even to convince yourself is... We spend a lot of times telling ourselves stories.
So would you be willing to take a life?
I hope not. But, you don't know yourself. Let me guess, you would.
No, not to prove that I'm right.
Oh.
But if I'm right, I would take a life.
Well, what if you're lying to yourself?
As hard as it is to believe, I'm as unbiased as I possibly can be.
But if you were lying to yourself, you wouldn't know that.
But this goes back to then everybody's lying to themselves.
Right. On some level, I'm sure we are. This is the person that I hope that I am. No, I would not kill someone to convince that I'm right. And even if I was 100% sure that I was right, I still wouldn't fight that battle to the bitter end because there are things that are more important than proving you're right.
But what if your life's on the line for being right?
If your end goal is not self-preservation, then that shouldn't be a problem.
Well, if your end goal isn't self-preservation, then I don't know why you're a living human being. Because that's like at the core of...
So why do people sacrifice themselves for others then?
Because hopefully in that moment, their sacrifice is a better outcome for the things around them.
Right.
But if you have a family and you have kids, which is an extension of you.
Right. Then protecting the kid is self-preservation.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. No, that
now,
makes sense.
if it's in other situations, then I would say they're delusional.
Right.
And they're going against their human nature. They're going against nature.
Right. Well, I don't know. People who are like...
Sometimes humans are too conscious.
Right. Yeah, agreed. So they were supposed to be radical environmentalists, right? Yes. So the contention of environmentalism is supposed to be that a greater concern for nature and the big picture than human need. Yet they're acting in the way of self-preservation that's exactly contradictory to that. Like, they hold a higher ideal than they actually, in the end, act like. Because if they really believe in what they're doing, then they shouldn't care if they get caught for it. Because it's not about them.
No, you remember, you forgot the key thing in all of this, which is why she started to change up. They killed somebody.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes, yeah.
And since a murder was tied to it, that's when they got nervous. That's when she started. But
Jesse Eisenberg is the one who killed to save himself. So,
yeah, but to be fair, if you're so caught up in this environmental goal, they said they're going to do this at.
So he think is the higher that's a further level of lying to yourself. No, I need to survive because I'm carrying on the cause.
No. They took a vow. No matter what happens, whatever happens tonight, it stays a secret.
Right, and she broke the vow. Is what you're saying. That's.
You take a blood oath.
There was no blood oath.
I know, but the way their mindset was.
Right.
Bro, she lied about that fertilizer, which is a federal crime.
Right.
If you're willing to do how many years and pay how much money for that,
right,
and then you grow a conscience when some type of one person dies, I thought nature matters more than people. By the way, this is how these people think.
Yeah.
Humans are the reason why nature is suffering. So if that's the case...
Yeah, it's that's a contradiction. I agree.
So for me, everything about that character, I did not...
It's hypocritical. Well, I think in general, all these characters are hypocritical.
Well, of all of them, the guy you thought was the sleazeball scumbag who's going to snitch, he was the one who I respect the most.
Right. At least he's the most true to himself.
And most
he knows exactly who he is, and he doesn't make apologies for it. So even if I don't agree with him, he's commendable on that level. Yeah. Agreed. And that's why we didn't really need to see him the second half of the movie, because there's no internal battle to be had there.
And you could make the case he was the guiding force for Jesse committing
to lose his shit.
Well, I wouldn't say lose his shit. I would say
I think he kind of lost his shit. He was not doing all right at the end of that
because
movie.
He didn't have the balls to supposedly stand up for nature.
Right.
He still killed her, but he went about it in a self-destructing manner.
Can I say that this has nothing to do with the plot, and there's probably no there, but I just like that the last scene of the movie was in like a sporting goods camping shop, like this weird space where consumerism meets nature in some sort of
Yes.
fake way. Like it was just the right setting to end the movie in.
It representing him. It represented him.
Right. It's kind of the hypocrisy of it all, isn't it?
Well, I wouldn't say hypocrisy. I would say more so the confliction.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I would say that was his character. He wants to stay true, but he's living in a society where the way he wants to live, he can't.
Is in conflict with that. And yeah.
Value versus cost in any destructive act.
My head automatically reframes that question to like this is an do the ends justify the means kind of thing.
Yeah.
And my answer to that is always no. An action is right in and of itself. In the end, turn into the exact thing that you're fighting. That's how evil happens. It's the deluding yourself into thinking, well, I need to do this evil act, but that's only because it's going to bring about good.
But you're viewing it from an evil perspective. If your value, your goal, your end point is nature is number one in importance. Everything else comes below it. So you're supposedly keeping nature above everything else.
Well, I think personally that that's a deluded perspective anyway, because what is not part of nature? Like to say that it's nature versus humanity, I think is doesn't make sense in the first place.
Well, you can make a case that we are a cancer.
Right.
Even though cancer, by the way, cancer is natural to the human body, it doesn't mean it's good for the human body.
Right. And there are ways to, I guess, their response is always going to be too extreme for me because the answer is if we're a part of nature, then the answer is what's best for us and everything else because we're inseparable from it. So doing whatever and say, I don't care how many lives it costs of humans because I'm putting nature first. I think that's kidding yourself because it's taking human out of nature, which you can't do.
But let's go about this film, right? Their value is nature. Their end goal, get rid of this dam. By the way, concrete.
They clearly think that whatever means is fine. Well, no, not all of them. The girl doesn't think that it's worth people losing lives over.
And Jesse's character
does.
Well, he's conflicted.
Clearly, he does. Well, he killed. Yeah, but
he's still he's not like the other dude.
He doesn't feel great about it, but at the end of the day, he's gonna kill her to keep the secret.
Well, I think he's killing, but at that point, he's killing her for him, not for nature.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And that's just openly selfish, which is
exactly. So it defeats the
exactly.
But if you ask that one guy, he would say the end is worth it.
He would say
because he believed. I feel to answer this question, if you truly believe in the value, in the end goal, then yes.
That's the attitude of any extremist in any belief. So this is the problem with the ends versus means thing. I think any views held too tightly can only equal like bad things happening. You know, I don't think views in themselves are ever destructive. I think our attachment to them is what's destructive. It depends what you think is most important. I don't think there's anything in the world that's worth destroying your character over.
But
when you say it doesn't matter, this is my goal, I will burn this fucking world down if that's what I have to do to get to this goal because that will make things better.
If you're an evil person,
right,
and you're doing an evil act,
well, my goal is to not be an evil person. The evil person can cheat if they want to, but it's not worth it for me. I'd rather fail the test.
I think if
the choice for me personally, which that was your original question, is fail the test or cheat, I would fail the test in a heartbeat. There's more respect in losing well than winning and destroying your character, right?
That depends who you ask.
Like if I'm gonna go down, I'm gonna go down swinging. Like I may fail this test, but I took the shit out of it, you know? If this is to be...
You ask any sports player, would they rather lose with dignity or win by cheating? Isn't that the concept of humanity overall? We say we want to be pure.
So, but we don't. Right. Well, I guess my answer is the ideal. What I would actually do to get to a certain end, I couldn't say, but I would hope that I would choose what's honorable, because I feel like that's more valuable to me, to lose with honor. To lose with honor is actually like, an awesome thing. The question should only matter if it's not something you would do if you weren't trying to,
You value
When you ask the question, what I hear is, would you do something you know is wrong to achieve an end that you perceive as good? And if that's the way you're going to ask it, my question is always no.
Okay, because of the destructive
Because
aspect.
it's more important to lose well. Like it's more worth it. It's more of a win to lose well.
I would say it's more honorable. I wouldn't say it's more of a win.
It's more honorable.
Yeah. Because any sport...
All right, fine. I'll give you that. But
any sports person,
honorable.
if you've played any sports...
I value that more than winning or losing.
There's a reason why there's so many steroids.
That's what losers say.
Well, in a perfect world, that's how people would think, but they just don't think that way. So
Right,
that's
okay. They don't need to. Only I'm not responsible for them. I'm responsible for me. I am an absolute believer in like the corruptibility of power. Like having too much power will increase your chances of behaving in that way. And
power corrupts, absolutely.
Yeah, I don't want to sound cheesy by saying that, but it's true. If you have more to lose, it's going to change you. And it would probably change me too. I would not want to be a lottery winner, because I don't want to all of a sudden have a bunch of money, because that kind of thing changes you. It can't not. And usually not for the better.
I disagree. You know why? Abraham Lincoln says, if you want to know the character of a man, you don't judge them when they're down, you judge them when they're up.
Right. Yeah. Your character is how you treat people who can do nothing for you, right? But, I mean...
And I would win the
Abraham
lottery.
Lincoln is one of the great people of history. We can't all be compared to...
That we know of.
Yeah. Yeah. We can't all be compared to that. Would you blow up a dam to...
I'm the type of person you're all or nothing. If whatever your goal is, if your goal is to have
that goal, so you cheat on the test.
It depends on what subject.
What if there's no other? See, this is what I want to stress though. What if there is no other option? What if you are going to fail this test? The only way it's avoidable is if you cheat. Do you cheat, or do you face it?
I'm the type of person, I'm looking at all situations. Why can I not pass this unless I cheat? Like for me, I would never put myself in this damn situation. But let's say I believe, like let's say I'm a naturalist. I believe in nature 100%.
Okay.
Then everything that is concrete shouldn't exist. It's not natural. If you wanted a truly pure society, as fucked up as this sounds, anybody caught lying, you're dead. Because you go against the code. I'm a literal person.
Right.
I'm a literal person. So
is that what you would do if you ran the world?
However we agreed about ruling the world, yeah.
Right.
Like for me...
So there's no room for mercy. Because that's a weakness, is what you're saying.
Well, as fucked up as this sounds, followers don't respect the ones they love. They respect the ones they're afraid of.
Wow, okay, Machiavelli. That's, yeah, disagree. But... So you're all for like if we
No, let's put it like this. Alexander the Great.
First bus that's late, if we take the driver out and shoot him, that's the last bus that'll be late.
Basically every rapist should be killed in my opinion. But what if you had to rape this woman and there's a massive story behind it? I'm willing to hear you out. Your end goal is to make the most money as possible. If that is your end goal, then honor doesn't matter. So you worrying about being corrupt doesn't matter, because what's your end goal? The value.
Right.
But if your value is honor, then your end goal can't be corrupted, because honor is
what you value.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying it depends on what the value is. But going back to my question, I did say a destructive act, so you are correct. But if we're just saying, if we're not using the term how it's normally used, we're just saying value versus cost. If you have an honorable...
Yeah, well, I immediately twisted your question. That's
but
the way I said it. But
that was the point of the question came from the film. The film was a destructive act.
Right, so that's the way I was viewing it.
So you were correct.
You're pretty much just asking like how much drive and commitment do you have? Like
Well, that was where I was. Like, for example, the film. Everything you said, you are correct. But for me, I'm just going to go against the grain and say, if you value something so much, then the means does not matter. Especially if you believe your value is pure. And once again, everything is about perspective.
Right.
To a Sith Lord, killing kids.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's what I'm saying. That's my point about that's every extremist thinking.
But to be fair, you're an extremist to an extremist. You're an extremist for good.
Right. I don't want to be an extremist for good because I may misunderstand what good is.
But if we're being technical, this is the whole concept of language and perspective.
Right. Well,
it comes down to the whole Sith versus Jedi thing.
Right.
We view the Jedi as the quote-unquote good ones because they're supposedly fighting for concepts that we value as good.
Right.
But what if...
But that's a construct, right.
But what if we grew up in a universe where our species was born to be the killers? Like, we are like lions.
Right.
Like, legit lions. Everything that is weak is evil because you're bringing the species down.
Well, a lion is not being evil when it's, when it's eating the gazelle.
If you ask some people...
It's perfecting its lionhood.
If you ask some people, lions should only eat leaves.
Well, I can't have a rational conversation with those people, so I'm gonna just leave that there. But I'm just saying, like, good and evil only come in when you have the capacity to consider them. I don't call a lion evil when it eats something because a lion can't think about,
So why are
nor should it be held to that. The whole human, you could argue the whole, like, the whole human predicament is the fact that, our consciousness is evolved so much that we are too aware of our own existence.
We are.
To the point where that's why we are moral creatures, because we can think of it that way, and therefore we have that responsibility to consider it.
What if this is just nature? And what if we're making situations more complex than...
I completely agree. We are. Yeah.
Then you could make the case that when we're trying to save somebody, we're actually doing more harm to the ecosystem, whatever.
Right.
We should...
Because who knows what's good and what's bad.
Exactly.
Right.
I
agree with that.
The right thing is to save people. We think it is to help them. Right. What if, in reality... It's not, but because of our moral compass.
Exactly. But regardless of whether that's useless or wrong or not, the fact that we have the capacity to think that way is what separates us from.
Go back to
too much
film.
Compassion can be a very bad thing.
The actress, what was it? Dakota Fanning's character, she was not up to the job.
No.
So she obviously valued costs more than the actual.
She was an idealistic young college student,
just like
in over her head.
Just like
that misunderstands
everything.
Yes. Like, you shouldn't be trying to change the world at that age.
Well, she perfectly represented the average college girl and she has this ideal that when it becomes reality, she can't handle, or she did not expect it.
Or she just didn't understand the full
concept,
the full picture.
Yeah. It sounds good on paper.
Yeah. When you're young and you're just like, someone says, it's bad that we're destroying the environment. Of course you're going to say, well, yeah. But single-mindedly then chasing that and not considering all the other, things can lead you to get into stuff that you don't fully understand, and have there be consequences that you weren't ready for.
And this is just going back 360. If somebody fully knows what their value is and what the end goal is, they are willing to do any mean to get to it. She did not fully understand.
No, she didn't.
The reason why she crumbled and that one order man did not, because
he completely considered that possibility, probably.
I put money he did.
And he was okay with it. Yeah. So, yeah, again, props to him for knowing himself. even though I don't agree with him. But yeah, he wasn't in over his head because he completely knew what could happen, and he accepted it beforehand.
It was a pleasure.
Yes, absolutely, always a pleasure. I did not expect to have this
This long
of a conversation for this one. This was good.
It would have been even. I still have questions, so.
I mean, you could shoot some more questions if you want, but
Oh no, it's going like I have legit. I had 3 more questions for the previous film, and then I have
gotcha.
2 more for time reasons.
right on.
So that's
a good place to call it.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thank you once again for joining the Rhinos and Aliens diving deep into entertainment, episode 56. And of course, like always, we have to give you the 5-finger rhino thrust. So, number 1, like the video or dislike it. Number 2, subscribe. Number 3, you already subscribed. Hit that bell. You want the notifications. Number 4, share. Share. We have Twitter, we have Facebook, and we have Instagram. And just don't share yourself. Share to your parents, your grandparents, your friends, your cat and dog. What cat and what dog doesn't like watching random videos of people talking? That is not... What is it called? Like a question you don't want somebody to actually answer.
Rhetorical.
That is a rhetorical question, guys. And number 5...
Totally rhetorical.
Comment on any of these films, anything we specifically dived into, and we are so happy to get back to that feedback. So, LOPH, Cadoodle, guys, thank you for joining.
Just a friendly reminder, guys, hit the subscribe button in this corner, and then for the newest video, then for the most recommended, and then for our famous dick pic,